flood stand before us. I vow that not soon will I fall. So keep free a place by the fire for me and with fortune I soon will be home. My sweet darling Katie, every word that I say is plain, and let nothing ring hollow. Your grace I will follow through thunder, through wind and through rain, through thunder, through wind and through rain.
Oh damn, I've been feeling something for you lately, and I am trying so hard to just stay cool. Oh man, I think I might be going crazy, 'cause all I really, really want is to be with you. And I'm saying we're just friends, but thinking you're my man. And baby, if you knew, hey, I say I'm doing alright, I'm doing just fine, but I'm scattered, and I cry when you're not around, because it matters, dreaming of your kisses in the nighttime, knowing what I'm missing, but I'm still like, hey, I say I'm doing alright, I'm fine, but I'm scattered, we're just friends. Oh no, I don't wanna be the one with answers, because I sure don't wanna know. And no, the thought of her being a private dancer, it's just a little too much for me to chew. But I'm like, I say that I'm alright, but cry on the inside. I wish you were my man. Hey, I say I'm doing alright, I'm doing just fine, but I'm scattered, and I cry when you're not around, because it matters, dreaming of your kisses in the nighttime, knowing what I'm missing, but I'm still like, hey, I say I'm doing alright, I'm fine, but I'm scattered, we're just friends. Oh, yeah, I'm scattered, we're just friends. Just friends. So I stay awake, I don't wanna be dreaming, 'cause my heart aches when I wake up, it's deceiving. Why, oh why can't it be you and I? Hey, I say I'm doing alright, I'm fine. Hey, I say I'm doing alright, I'm doing just fine, but I'm scattered, and I cry when you're not around, because it matters, dreaming of your kisses in the nighttime, knowing what I'm missing, but I'm still like, hey, I say I'm doing alright, I'm doing just fine, but I'm scattered, and I cry when you're not around, because it matters, dreaming of your kisses in the nighttime, knowing what I'm missing, but I'm still like, hey, I say I'm doing alright, I'm fine, but I'm scattered, we're just friends.
My gun and my powder, my old woolen trousers, some bread for the road, the call of the bugle, another refusal to wait for the snow. She knows that I'll grow slowly as a raindrop down a window pane. She knows that I'll hold her locket on a chain to keep the evil things away. Jesus, come briefly dismiss me or keep me, just let me go home. She'll be burning a candle under the mantle when the evenings get cold. She knows that I'll grow slowly as a raindrop down her window pane. She knows that I'll hold her locket on a chain to keep the evil things away. She knows that I'll grow slowly as a raindrop down her window pane. She knows that I'll hold her locket on a chain to keep the evil things away. If I die, will you hold on? Will you hold on to me? And if I die, will you...
Hello and welcome, everyone. Time for another episode of the Flavorist Diary. And I forgot I restarted OBS, so I can get rid of the text behind me. Holy moly. What a day. Kerfluffles, dangle clacks already happening. OBS crashed as soon as I went live today. Well, actually, it wasn't as soon as I went live. It did go live, and the printer did start printing. But as soon as I hit the adults only sound effect, OBS crashed. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I went and Control-Alt-Delete, and it was dead completely. Fired it back up and had to reactivate all the things like the teleprompter and whatnot. But it seems to be working. And then the internet speed's all over the place. It dropped down to 0 at one point. So I even ran a speed test, and I'm like, is my internet speed okay? Well, looks like it's just perfectly fine. There's no reason why it shouldn't be working. I don't know. It is what it is. But we got a lot to cover today, so I don't want to get muddled up in, the dangle clacks that we've already had so far. I want to tell you what we're going to cover today, because today we're moving on from Bull City flavor, single flavor testing that we did the last 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about flavor modifiers. And technically, well, every single flavor is a flavor modifier. Because when it comes to, our DIY e-liquids, well, there's two basic ingredients that is in every single thing that we make. Well, that's vegetable glycerin, which is what makes the clouds, and propylene glycol, which is in there as an antimicrobial, so your e-liquids don't go bad. Well, not because of, nothing will grow in it, because of the antimicrobial properties of the propylene glycol. That's technically what differentiates e-liquids from fog juice, because fog juice just uses sterile water and vegetable glycerin and flavorings to give it an aroma. So like if you order strawberry scented fog juice, well, that's vegetable glycerin, sterile water, and strawberry flavoring that gives it the beautiful strawberry scent. Well, everything is a flavor modifier. And there's science that's been done. Granted, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because a lot of these studies were funded to find harms, and they will keep doing the science and adapt the science until they find a harm. So it's up to us, the end users, to go, can we rely on this vape science? Well, can't take it as gospel. It's not the Bible talking to you on, what is black and white. It's more like these are guiding principles. And you need to be smart enough to go, okay, they did them. Let's look at the science, and they did find harms, but the harms they were looking at was lung cells on a petri dish. How does that translate into my human body? And how does that compare to cigarette smoking, which is something you will very rarely find in a lot of these studies? They do not typically compare what is happening on the petri dish with what happens on the petri dish if you expose it to cigarette smoke. And that's a crying shame, because people like you and I would like to know this kind of information. If I choose to put a flavor modifier inside of the e-liquid I make so I don't smoke cigarettes, well, how's that going to affect my long-term health? Obviously, we know that it's going to be better than smoking cigarettes, That's why you take a look at it and you go, well, vaping's at least 95% safer than smoking. And that comes from a bunch of scientists and a bunch of studies that were done to determine what is the maximum potential harm that somebody could expose themselves to if they were vaping. And let's compare that to cigarette smoke, and let's compare that to them not doing anything at all. And the scientists that sat at the table and discussed this and published as a paper, said it cannot exceed, it was very, very, very unlikely to ever exceed 5% the harms from cigarette smoke. Lighting tobacco on fire, breathing that in, and the damage that's already been proven if you're a smoker. So that's what we have to keep in the back of our minds when we look at some of this science. And I've got some science I want to present to you guys because I want you to approach this with an open mind, but I also want you to be realistic about the fact that this is not 100% harmless. Nothing actually is in my book, but that's my interpretation. It's up to you as an informed consumer to choose what you do and what you can accept as an allowable amount of risk. You have to determine what the risk is, because FDA is certainly not helping us with that. They're just simply, authorizing the big tobacco products, and now we've got one company that's not owned by big tobacco, at least not yet. We were having a conversation in the chat before the show started today, and, fundamental economics means if somebody wants to buy something, well, people that run shops, they're going to sell them because they've got a customer demand, and they're out there to make a profit, to put food on their table. So if all their customers are demanding cannabis, well, they're going to try and get the cannabis in the store. And if they can't get cannabis because it's still technically illegal in their state, they'll get the CBD in the store because the CBD is legal and, went under the Farm Bill. Same thing applies to all the lovely things that we have here before us. Pennsylvania's got a PMTA registry bill. And, the vape shops are only going to be allowed to buy from authorized, licensed wholesalers, and the people that are selling to the wholesalers and the distributors are only going to be allowed to put their inventory in Pennsylvania stores if they swear to God that they've already applied for a PMTA from the FDA and they haven't gotten a denial letter. So over the course of the next year, you're going to be seeing a bunch of the vape shops close or completely transition over to CBD type products and alternative products. It's a reality that, we have to face if you live in a state like this that, has already adopted one of these PMTA registry bills. So that's the reason why when I quit smoking, and by the way, I did update the website. Let's close this down. I actually got back on the website and I updated it. We've always taken a look at this part of it. Since I quit smoking, 40,894,753 people have died from continuing to smoke cigarettes. Meanwhile, I'm 2,366 days without a cigarette. I've been an ex-smoker for 6 years and 174 days, exclusively because of nicotine vaping. So if you'll excuse me, when the prospect of being able to walk into a local vape shop and get my products is unrealistic in the near future, I need to know how to make my own stuff. And in order for me to make my own stuff, I need to learn everything there is to learn about DIY mixing. For the last 5 years, I've done random recipes on ELR, and that's very easy for anybody to do. You can go to ELR, which is eliquidrecipes.com. You can enter inside of the database when you create a login for there, all of your flavors. I've got 837 flavors entered into this database, and you can click this button up here that says, what can I make? With the stuff I have sitting on my desk, what can I make? And it's going to go, okay, well, let's take a look at all the recipes inside my database, and let me find all the recipes in my database that completely match with all the ingredients you have in your inventory. I've been doing this for 5 years now, making other people's random recipes. And there's only been about half a dozen times where I've just sat down and go, okay, you want this? You want, a cherry Bakewell? Well, let's see what goes into making a cherry Bakewell. I watched a TV show and I'm like, this is how they make cherry Bakewell on the assembly line. This is, what they put in it. There's marzipan, there's almond, there's a crust. They put raspberry jelly inside of it. And the raspberry jelly is supposed to mimic your cherry flavor that you get. But they don't really put cherry filling in it. They put a beautiful custard inside it, and they put a single candied cherry on the very top of it. It's not even a maraschino cherry. And the raspberry filling is what gives you that flavor. So with that in mind, let's mix up a recipe of an e-liquid that is supposed to taste like the cherry Bakewell. And it happened to turn out great, which is a very rare thing to happen when you DIY mixing stuff. Unless you really know the flavors, and that's why you have to single flavor test them. And I would be reminiscent in being a conscientious flavorist. And that's what I'm trying to call myself. I really have very little experience compared to some of you out there. Some of you that mix them for a while can just whip stuff up together like my wife whips up dinner every night, and it always tastes amazing. Well, she knows what flavors taste like. She knows what her flavor modifiers taste like. She knows what salt does when she puts it on her chicken, or when she puts salt onto a baked potato before she bakes it, and you encrust that with that salt. How that modifies the flavor profile of the baked potato or on your steak before you grill it. These are all the wonderful things that, you have to learn and try. And some people will try and never get good at it. And, some people will just type it into Grok and ask Grok to make the recipes, and Grok will give you a recipe for it. Is there any guarantee that it's going to be a great recipe? Nah. As time goes on, I'll get better and better at it, but ultimately, the decision is on your tongue, whether you're going to like it or not. It's your tongue and your brain that determine, does this taste good to me? It can taste good to hundreds of other people, but if it's something that you don't like, well, it doesn't matter how good the recipe is. It's going to suck for you, and you won't be able to enjoy it inside your product because you just don't like that flavor. That's reality. We want to make sure we take a look at everything realistically and then move forward. It's not just a hodgepodge of throwing stuff together. So I think this is kind of obvious, but I don't think anybody's ever really said this before. Ooh, I know what's wrong. Stream Deck is the one that's not working. All right, so let me flip the camera over once I find the right scene, because for some reason the button's not working. Okay, so we have our scale here, and we're going to mix up a random recipe. And today I'm going to do like I should have done on the vlog on Tuesday, but I forgot about it. Somebody asked me to wick the Kylin V3. So we're going to be doing a wicking tutorial on that later on. But flavor modifiers. First off, if you want to determine, how good of a flavor modifier is, and you want to be able to measure how much it modifies the flavor, you need a starting point. And that starting point is simply single flavor testing VGPG by itself with nothing else in it. Because, if you don't know what this tastes like, and you're only judging it based on graham cracker, when you do a single flavor test of graham cracker, you don't know how much that graham cracker actually modified what this already tastes like. And if you haven't already tasted your VG and your PG, I want to ask you why. You should know what that tastes like. You should know how much sweetness is already put into your liquid simply by using vegetable glycerin in the first place. You can knuckle test this. You can take and get yourself a nice little dripper, like this Wasp Nano that you can't see on camera. Let's get the silver one out. Here's a beautiful Wasp Nano. You can take and put some wicking inside of here and vape just VG and PG, just to see what it's like. Get that experience of understanding what your base ingredients taste like. And that also means unflavored VG and PG with your normal strength of nicotine. If you're making e-liquids with nicotine in it, well, you should know how your nicotine affects your recipes. I read some scientific studies and they say it's supposed to give you, a harsh characteristic, a harsh throat irritation, and it's supposed to taste like, pepper or something like that. And I'm like, well, I know that old nicotine that's really dark gets peppery compared to the new stuff that is crystal clear. But when I make up a VGPG with nicotine and it's brand new and it's crystal clear, I do get a throat hit when I vape it, but I don't really taste any peppery notes. I don't taste anything at all. There is no difference for me between straight up VGPG and VGPG with nicotine in it. I don't taste it. It is a clean, pure, pharmaceutical grade product. As it ages and degrades, because it is sensitive to temperature, it's sensitive to light. That's why, they come in dark amber bottles or they come in a dark blue bottle. That's to protect it from UV light, because UV light breaks down those chemical compounds inside of there and does degrade its purity and decreases the effective dose of it. So if you haven't made just plain VGPG and Nick, that's your project for this week. Because if you don't know what this tastes like, how can you accurately leave a rating for Capella's Fizz Pop when you use this as a single flavor test with your normal concentration? And you rate this and you go, I expect that to taste like a bomb pop. That's what it's supposed to go for. It's like a fizz pop. But when I make my own stuff, it has these off notes. And if you don't know what this tastes like, how can you blame this for your off notes when the off notes might be coming from your 3-year-old Nick that you've been using, that you've left out into the, open ambient temperature air? And because you don't run the air conditioner all the time and you're like right above the heat register, how do you know in the wintertime this didn't go through a bunch of temperature fluctuations every time the furnace kicked in and warmed up and then it cooled off? And in the summertime, it could be just the same. What's most important for long-term storage is consistency in temperature. It's not about, putting it into a deep freeze because of the fact that you need to refrigerate it. It can sit in an ambient temperature if it's kept at a constant 70 degrees and you protect it from light and you have your decanted bottles that are protected from oxygen, it won't break down. There's people out there just like wine connoisseurs. When they open a bottle of wine, they'll take a glass out of it. They will sit there and put into the bottle an inert gas before they recork it and put it away for storage, because it's the oxygen that causes the compounds in there to degrade. So that's the whole thing. You can do the same thing with your Nick. You want long-term storage of it, you decant it. You can fill it all the way up to the very top and put the cap on, or to get rid of as much air as possible. Or I've seen people that actually bought the gases that you can spray inside of your bottle, and that actually puts a protective layer of inert gas that doesn't degrade your contents of stuff. So that's what I went and did today. I got my single flavor testing done of just the VG and the PG, and I have a single flavor test done of my VG PG with my normal dose of Nick. And I knuckle test this, just like I knuckle test my DIY liquids when I make them. I can experience the sensation of what it is when that nicotine is absorbed inside my body. I do feel a little bit of that throat hit, and I'm not even vaping it. That's just a simple knuckle test. And that's simply the reaction and the perception that you have of that being absorbed into your body. So when you take something like this white chocolate blueberry truffle Neopits mixed up, and you go and you knuckle test this, now that I have that in my back of my mind, what the effects of this were, now I can better determine what is this and how is it modified or different than this. And right away, I'm getting a beautiful mouthfeel that's flavorful. It's got a little bit more sweetness than the VG inherently puts into this. And I get that that's a white chocolate blueberry truffle. But my palate is certainly not good enough to determine, what did he put in here to make this? I imagine he put white chocolate in there. I imagine he put blueberry in there. And what made it a truffle? You can look at his recipe that he graciously gave to us, and you can look at it that way. But you can't talk about modifiers without understanding how things are being modified. And the whole purpose of today is for us to take a look at actual flavor modifiers that we all have in our inventory to some degree or another. Things like acetylpyrazine, which I think it gives it like a brand cereal characteristic to recipes. Then you have your cooling agents like your Coolata. You have your classic menthols, regardless of what brand they are. You have Polar Blast. Like, what is Coolata? What is Polar Blast? And like I said, flavorings. Vanillin is a flavoring agent. It's a flavor modifier. This vanilla is in, obviously, your like vanilla bean ice cream. This is in your vanilla coffee. This is in your French vanilla. It's a chemical compound, and this just happens to be just vanillin as a flavor modifier. Then you have cooling agents. You have WS3 and WS23. What's the difference besides them being two different chemical compounds? And last but certainly not least are your sweeteners. This is Vape Train Australia's Sugar Mate. I have no clue what they're using in here as a sweetener. Is it sucralose? Is it ethyl maltol? Is it a combination thereof? Flavorist sweetness. Here's extra sweet from Capella. And that's to be different than your typical super sweet. Extra sweet from Capella is a neotame-based sweetener. That's a sucralose-based sweetener. And then you get other things that you end up looking into it. There's a whole ton of flavor modifiers, but like one example of a flavor modifier that's a sweetener is cotton candy. Cotton candy is actually 10% ethyl maltol. But we identify it as cotton candy when we mix up our recipes. But in scientific terms, that's just another sweetener. Like TFA sweetener is 50% ethyl maltol, 50% sucralose. And then you also have things like sweet guava. What differentiates Capella's sweet guava from their fresh guava? Right? Why do they call it sweet? Do they already have ethyl maltol in there? Do they already have sucralose in here? Do they have stevia in here? What are they using to make this a sweet guava instead of a fresh guava? It's got to be some kind of sweetener. And we don't know what it is. But if you single flavor test stuff and you mix up a bunch of different sweeteners, like 10% of each, and then you compare this to your 10, you may be, if your tongue's good enough, able to identify what they used in here as a sweetener. Especially if you compare it to like the fresh guava, which isn't sweetened. Some of the flavorings that we put into our things dry out our mouth and have no sweetness to it whatsoever. They may have malic acid in it, which is another flavor modifier. They might have citric acid in it, like some of our sweeteners do as a preservative, but some of our flavorings, like our oranges, use citric acid as your orange flavor. Those are all flavor modifiers. And when you look at things from a scientific perspective, it really changes how I look back on my shelf of recipes, of ingredients, to have a different understanding of it, and I question why it's taken me so long to get to the point where every time I made a DIY recipe, somebody's random recipe, I always added sweetener to it. I always added 0.5% of super sweet to it. Did I really need to? Would those recipes have been better had I have not put that sweetener in it? Those are all possibilities that I won't know without remaking those recipes. And that's the reason why single flavor testing is so important when you're trying to make your own liquids. So this is the fundamental thing that we're trying to get across today. And in order for us to get into it and expand our understanding of what risks are we taking by using these things inside of our things, well, we need to take a look at the science. There is science done on these individual things. There's plenty of science done on flavorings for the food industry. Some of those things are kept as corporate secrets behind locked safes, and some of the stuff is generally available for all of us to look at. And believe me, there's plenty of studies showing what these flavoring ingredients do and where's the harm that they can potentially do to us. So why don't we take a look at some of those? All right. First off, there's one little thing I do want to vent about. It was really driving me nuts. Can you see what's here? Look what YouTube is pushing as a normal advertisement on their platform. People have gotten banished from their platform for doing reviews of nicotine pouches. But, YouTube is now putting advertisements in for Zyne. Promoted, sponsored content. Part of me says that this is actually a good thing because, if Google and YouTube is making money from nicotine pouches, then they're not going to be so dismissive of people that want to review nicotine pouches. If you frame it as your personal experience and not a promotion of the product, it should be welcomed on the platform. But maybe that's just wishful thinking. I don't know. But I thought that you guys should see that. I was like, wait a minute, what? What is this? I was flabbergasted. I even had to screenshot it because I'm like, oh, that's going to be gone by the time I go live. No, there you go. Owning the Morning, Zyne coffee pouch. I've got some here. I've tried them. I couldn't just exclusively do that. Reach for the sunrise. This was an actual video commercial before I went to go watch this video. Like, what? And right before the show, I don't know if you guys, where is it? I don't know if you guys watch this or not, but American Vape Manufacturers Association has a podcast they do. I wish they did it every single Friday, but they normally do it Fridays at noon. And they happen to have Ariel Celia on there, who's a scientist, works for Penny Associates, that consults for Juul. And she does, scientific reviews and analysis on the stuff that's out there. She and Clive Bates do a weekly summary from the database to see what science has been published about vaping. And they go and they actually read the studies and they take a look at it. You can sign up to be on a consumer list where, they'll let you know, these are the list of ones that were published this week. This is an, oh my God, like, how did they come up with this? This one's like, okay, this is relevant. You probably ought to take a look at this. And there's a bunch of them that are just like, this is a waste of the paper it was printed on, let alone actually the space it occupies on a computer database. But they were talking about this before the show today, and impact of chemical flavorants on reinforcement behavior. So like if you have, vanilla inside your e-liquid, how much does that reinforce your nicotine habit? And, this isn't the only study that's been done like this. There's been lots of them done like this.
Let's torture the mice.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that really gets me is most of the studies that they do out there are done on mice, rodent studies. And I'm not even get into how they torture these mice, but it's like, how much does that actually translate over to us as human beings? Anyway, we'll get into that some other time.
What happened to these poor
okay,
rodents?
so these poor mice, and I don't usually I do not go into detail on the mouse studies because there's always the big umbrella of like, is this relevant? Is this going to extend to humans? Is it relevant to human health outcomes? I'm not usually convinced of either of those things, but
which is something you guys should do too. If I point out a study during the vlog or if I point out a study during the show today, I want you guys to take all these things with a grain of salt. I want you to be able to think critically and go, why? Why did they come up with that assumption? Does it even make any sense? Because a lot of the assumptions that they've made about vaping over the long years that it's been around, the decades that it's been around, we are not mice. And we would not subject ourselves to be inside of a little glass tube, shoved our full body inside there, crunched up like this, with our noses and our mouths aimed with a tube that blows stuff into your mouth, continuously all day long for 48 hours. And then they're going to draw the blood from the mouse and go, oh man, it raises your blood pressure, raises your heart rate. It puts all kinds of stress hormones and stuff into you. And it's like, well, yeah, if I was shoved into that tube and we had to be subjected to that for 48 hours, I might have a heart attack and die. And it's not because of what you injected into me for that tube. It was simply because you put me in that whole experiment to begin with. Regardless, that's the stuff why you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And you have to question it. What are the motives for this? And is it a realistic experiment? And how does that translate to what I breathe into my own lungs?
This one I thought was worth discussing because even within the framework, like let's give them.
Here's the reason why she wants to discuss this. We'll skip past to it. Go right to the chart that she presented, okay? This is really, really, really interesting. This study took a look at it, and it said, how much are the mice addicted based upon the flavor modifiers they were exposed to? This is how much they were potentially addicted if they just had VG and PG. So I said, you should single flavor test, just VG and PG. This is how much potential addictiveness there was to the vaporized liquid when it contained vanilla flavors. The vanillin I just showed you? It was just vanillin, VG, PG, and Nic, right? Well, no, it wasn't. It was just vanilla and vegetable glycerin and propylene glycol. And look, when they added nicotine to it and retested, it was not as addictive. So it's not the flavoring compounds by themselves that act on whether these things are addictive or not. And by adding nicotine to the vanilla flavored liquid to make a vanilla e-liquid, it's less addictive potential than if you had just vanilla VG and PG. Wait a minute, what? This fear-mongering propaganda stuff is ridiculous. Well, except when you're talking about menthol, there is some science to show that, well, guess what? If you just tested with nicotine and you had nicotine and vanilla, then the vanilla with the nicotine is just a little bit more addictive. But if you had vanilla without nicotine, then it's way more addictive. And then you had menthol. Why didn't they do a menthol without nicotine comparison? Are they afraid that they were going to find the same thing? But, they got to push their propaganda. If you can use menthol inside of your liquid and inside your cigarette, you're going to be way more addicted. I don't know. You didn't test for that. How come? You bothered to test the vanilla on its own, but then when you found out that nicotine lowered its addictive potential, why didn't you ask yourself during the study, man, look, menthol is even more addictive than vanilla. I wonder if menthol with nicotine is actually less addictive or more addictive than just plain menthol and vegetable and glycerin and propylene glycol. You look at these studies and you shake your head and you go, how much time do these people waste doing incomplete tests? Are they even looking to find new information, or are they trying to fulfill an agenda to badmouth the most effective way to quit smoking? Regardless, I did want to, put that in there and kind of frame things for you before I present you with the actual information that we're going to take a look at today. But flavoring agents have been studied with electronic cigarettes for a long time, and there is plenty of science out there. And you can do the search for yourself. Don't take my single study that I just happened to, pick across because it came across a Google search when I was looking for flavor modifiers for this week's show, as the only source of the study and the only one that you should rely on. You should take a look at all of them out there, and you should make up your own mind. Do the research and find out for yourself. Is this truly something I should be endeavoring to do? What are the risks of me mixing up all my own flavorings and coming up with my own concoctions? Because I know from, just fundamental chemistry that no matter what it is I'm mixing together, they will react with each other. Sometimes you'll have new compounds that are formed. Sometimes you'll reduce the number of compounds that are formed because the compounds that are in the liquids and the concoctions that we make will actually meld together and the two individual components disappear because these two always, pair up with each other like a married couple, But the point of this is when I was taking a look at this study, they were taking a look at, cell membranes and, vasoreactivity from these things and nitric oxide bioavailability and a bunch of other, pathophysiology type measurements on how your cell and your body reacts chemically and physically to these things. And, well, we found out that when we put the flavoring agents in, the concentration of the flavoring agent and the duration exposure was controlled for. The literature says the effects of the flavoring agents is currently limited, emphasizing the need for more studies. Fund us, give us more funds, and we'll keep doing more studies, randomized clinical trials and stuff. But in summary, the research suggests the flavoring agents themselves have detrimental effects to the body. To fully comprehend these effects, additional preclinical and clinical studies are going to be needed to figure out exactly how much they are. But I wanted to be completely honest with you guys and let you know that, when we mix up this stuff in our own labs, the net harm is not zero. There is harm you're exposing your body to, whereas if you didn't expose it to these things that we mix up, it's not a net zero world. It's definitely better than smoking cigarettes. But how much better we can't say when we start, becoming our own manufacturers, coming up with our own concoctions. One flavor modifier is definitely going to have less of an effect than two flavor modifiers, generally speaking. But you can't say that to an absolute certainty, as was clearly demonstrated in the previous video. Simply adding nicotine to vanilla made it less addictive. Did it make it less harmful? I don't know, because they didn't check for that in that study. But if you Google it, I'm sure you can find a study that will tell you what you want to know. For me, it's enough for me to understand that there has been no conclusive study that says that, what we're doing here is actually going to kill you more than smoking cigarettes. So until I come across a study like that, I'm going to keep mixing my own things. And, well, it's up to you to decide what you want to do for yourself. But information is there. And I also mentioned earlier that, flavor modifiers also include acids that we use. And this is not put in there to pH balance things, although I sometimes think that it would be beneficial for us to have a pH chemistry set inside of our lab so we can check the final pH of the liquids that we make. And, big manufacturers do that, and they might put in here citric acid, not as a flavor modifier, but as a pH modifier, so that you can get something that is more in line with, the normal pH balance of our bodies, and is less acidic or is less base, something that is, along the 7.3 to 7.4 variants of our normal chemistry. Regardless, citric acid and malic acid are used as flavor enhancers and flavor modifiers. Hence the reason for the beautiful thumbnail background we have for today's episode. Those little white crystals that you see on top of your gummies are flavor modifiers. And you can have citric acid on it encapsulated, or you can have malic acid on it encapsulated. They both present as a sour note on our tongue. And different people have different reactions to them. Some prefer one, some prefer the other. Some of them, it might be a combination of the two of them. All depends upon the actual formulation that manufacturers make. And this is stuff that is safe for us to consume when we eat it, but not necessarily safe for us to breathe into our lungs. It all depends on the dosage that we inject into our recipes on how this affects us. Is it something I'm worried about? No. But it is something that is motivating me to buy my own hot plate so that I can actually make my own sour using citric acid and malic acid. Dissolving 10% of that inside of propylene glycol and using that as a flavor modifier rather than relying on some other manufacturer's sour. Like, I can go to Liquid Barn sour, and I guarantee you if you put that into a chemical analysis, you would find out that it's just propylene glycol and one of these two acids. That's what they're selling as sour, a 10% solution of this. Just like I want to do is a neotame at 10% solution to see how that fares with the extra sweet from Capella. I wouldn't be shocked to find out that because neotame is 6,000 times sweeter than sugar, and because sucralose is 600 times sweeter than sugar, Capella, when they made their extra sweet, didn't make it at 10%. They probably made it at 1%, so that it's comparable in sweetness to what they're already selling as super sweet. So that when you're mixing it into a recipe, you can modify the recipe just as easily rather than providing you something that is 10 or 100 times stronger, in which case one drop of it might be too much for your recipe. It might make it way too sickeningly sweet. So they want to sell things that are approximately the same strength. But there's no way to know unless we test it for ourselves, because the manufacturers aren't want to give us their stuff. They're certainly not giving us their recipes for their lovely liquids that they sell. Marketplace didn't go out and publish, or one of their workers didn't go out and leak the recipe to this pineapple peach dragonberry that they sell. There have been a few companies that used to sell e-liquid that when they went out of business were kind enough to post on social media what their recipes were. And I'm going to dig it up for this week, and I'm going to put that on the Discord server so you can go and check it out. There's a company that's made some stuff, and I've actually mixed it up as a random recipe on our show. And, feel free to check it out. This was a commercial manufacturer that sold a bunch of these things. So we have a list of, I think, a dozen of their recipes that they were selling at the time before they went out of business. They went out of business when the PMTA registry came into effect, and it says, we don't sell a volume big enough to pay for the science required to get FDA to go through, let alone the fact that we don't believe that the FDA is actually going to authorize any of us small peons to sell our stuff. So we might as well bail while we still have, a little bit of income built up from our sales of these things. And, since we're never going to do this again, here's our recipes. Have at it. For those of you that were loyal customers, here's recipes. You can go and buy the ingredients and make up your own and never have to buy anybody else's liquid again. If that's what you were using as your all-day vape to not smoke, go ahead. Our secrets are now out in the open. But yeah, you can go and purchase this. You can buy these things on Amazon. You can buy the pure chemical ingredients of it. You don't need to buy the encapsulated malic acid. You can just buy pure malic acid and then, mix up your own sour and pick and choose how you use it. And that leads us to the science behind the cooling agents that we have, that we hate in all the disposables. Every single disposable that's out there has a cooling sensation to it. Some of them, like this new latest aux bar, the MagLink, Only has a little tiny bit of cooling sensation to it. But then you get this Citric's Ghost Vape. And when you put it into ghost mode, all you get is ice. Notice when I exhale, there's no vapor. Because all it is vegetable glycerin, a little tiny bit in there, propylene glycol, and a cooling agent. The vegetable glycerin is in there in such a low quantity that when you breathe it in, the moisture from your lungs is what neutralizes all that and absorbs it. And what you exhale is essentially just the propylene glycol and the vaporized cooling agent. Are they using WS3, WS23, or are they using something else? Well, in all the scientific studies that I've come across, these are the two prominent cooling agents that you have on there besides menthol. And menthol is a completely different beast on its own. These ones are pure and just give a cooling sensation to the mouth. This stuff is also found in foods, and a lot of like the candies and stuff like that will consider using something like this if they want to give that ice cold sensation to it. That's like, remember when we were kids growing up and you got those super, super sour candies? What do you think that they were using to make that? Malic acid. They put malic acid into the sugar when they melted it and boiled it, added the food coloring to give it that color, added your cherry flavor to it to give it that cherry cooling sensation. And when you put it in your mouth, you got a beautiful cherry flavor. And the next thing you know, your whole mouth and tongue were frozen solid. And that's because they put these synthetic cooling agents inside of that candy. So they have done science on this. Crying the blues about, there's substantial rise in e-cigarettes and vaping in the past decade. So, recently synthetic cooling agents have been added to these products like WS23 and WS3 to provide a cooling sensation without the menthol taste. And studies have shown that aerosolized vapes generated by e-cigs can contain significant levels of reactive oxygen species. However, studies investigating the role of synthetic cooling agents in modulating these ROS levels are lacking. So that's what got us to do this study. So we aim to take a look at these cooling agents on here. And what did we find out? Well, our data suggests that neither the addition of WS23 nor WS3 to e-liquid base solution with or without nicotine significantly modifies the e-cigarette generated acellular ROS levels. In other words, when you use a cooling agent inside your liquid, it doesn't potentially harm you any more than if you didn't have it in there in the first place. And it doesn't matter whether the nicotine's in there or not. So theoretically, just by this one study alone, you could formulate a hypothesis that if you got yourself a flavorless, disposable vape, that would be the safest way for you to vape. And consequently, as a DIY mixer, if you just mixed up your own e-liquid using VG, PG, a cooling agent, and your nicotine to keep you from smoking, that would be the safest way for you to continue vaping and not smoke cigarettes. If you choose to put flavoring agents into your recipe, well, more power to you. But it's going to be, from a scientific perspective, more harmful than if you just stuck with things that have demonstrated no harm. Fundamental science. Gotta love it. You can't find this type of, widely available science dumbed down. There's no like Dummy's Guide to the Science of Vaping. Maybe I should write that book one day when I get done with this whole series. Might be 5 years down the road, but I could do that. I've read the science. I continue to read whatever I can come across that I see as relevant and pertinent to what we're doing. And there's been plenty of science I've dismissed altogether, and there's plenty of science that has got me to question, like, well, do I really want to use erythritol inside my e-liquid that I make for myself? The new study that came out last year that caused a big ruckus is that erythritol is one of those synthetic sweeteners that is out there that some people have used in their DIY recipes. It's not a common or popular sweetener, but it is a different sweetener than the other stuff that we're using. And looking at that science that came out there, it was like, wow, this is like increase your cancer risk. I'm vaping so that I lower my cancer risk. I don't want to use that as an ingredient when I have alternatives that haven't demonstrated any potential harm. So that's the reason why we're covering science today. I want you guys to understand that, you know, when you continually add and you make up a recipe with 15 different ingredients in it, it's probably not going to be as healthy as if you just made it with VG, PG, Nick, and cooling. But, you know, this wasn't done with a rat. This was done with the mass spectrometer and cellular analysis. So what is the difference? I know of WS3 and WS23 because I have both of them here in my lab. But I know that if there's a WS3 and there's WS23, well, I mean, it tells me there's got to be at least 20, 25, 30 other cooling agents that we could potentially have access to. If you were in the food industry, you would know that because when you reached out to your wholesaler and your supplier, they would have a list of all of them that's out there. And then you'd have to learn everything there is to learn about all this stuff. But being that we only have WS3 and WS23 commonly available to us as a cooling agent, I want to know about them. And you can do some simple Google searches and you can use your AI bots and they will happily tell you what you want to know. You don't have to be scared of AI, not yet at least. They haven't been given the missile control access, but you know, eventually maybe they will, maybe they won't, who knows? But these are all alternatives to menthol. I loved it. I was a menthol cigarette smoker. I have menthol here. A lot of the candy cane recipes that I've tried to mix up before have had menthol in it. And man, was it delicious. Oh, definitely made the difference. It isn't just peppermint oil, resin, or essence that is in these candy cane recipes. When you add a little tiny bit of candy, a whole new level. But so like, what's the strength of these things? You have WS23 adopts advanced green and clean production processes to avoid the use of highly toxic chemicals and the large-scale use of highly polluting phosphoric acid compounds, blah, blah, blah. The purity of WS23 products can reach up to 99.999% pure. WS3 is a menthol derivative, but unlike menthol, WS3 is virtually non-volatile, odorless, and tasteless. WS3 is one of the most commonly used coolants on the market. We'll wonder why they're not using WS3 inside of our e-liquids. When you have an insatiable knowledge, curiosity for knowledge, every time you learn something new, it always leaves you with more questions than you started with. And it's like, well, where do I find that out? Where do I find that out? And you have to eventually pump the brakes and go, let's get back to the topic at hand. Like the fact that WS3 and WS23 are out here. And like, this is great, but I want to know how this relates to DIY mixing. Well, for that, there's plenty of resources available. I'm not, the first person to DIY my own recipes. Wayne wasn't the first person to DIY his own liquid and make up his own stuff. He had to learn from other people too. Unfortunately, vaping's been around for 2 decades. And over the course of the 2 decades, there's been lots of different places where people have had forums where you could go on there and post your questions, and mixers got together and they said, hey, man, I tested this stuff out. I ordered this from such and such company, and I made my liquids with it, and I tried it out, and I'm like, oh, they got a really cold sensation. And when I put WS23 in there, it was like 3 times as cold a sensation I got than when I used WS3. And you can find these things. Unfortunately, AI is really good at deep diving into other websites and summarizing the contents of what they find there. But we got somebody here that asked the question and says, I'm putting together an order with Nicotine River, who no longer sells to the consumer, which is a crying shame. I think the PMTA registry, not the PMTA registry, but the vape mail ban for that. In order for you to buy from Nicotine River nowadays, you have to have a commercial license. To the point where I actually thought about, submitting a commercial license just for the sake of being able to make commercial orders. But then you get into a whole nicotine fiasco and having tax licenses and stuff. And I'm like, nah, I'm not getting that far. Regardless, like Coolata. What is Coolata? I wonder how this changes the flavor, between the two of them. So far, my Coolant experience has been underwhelming. I haven't made a juice with Coolata that I didn't end up pouring out due to the unpleasant aftertaste from Coolata. And I've read here that WS23 is a big improvement on what Coolata tries to do. I'm hoping that WS3 will have a less noticeable impact on flavor, but offer similar cooling. Has anybody used this stuff? Will it serve as an acceptable substitute for my Coolant pickiness? So we get some conversations about it, and eventually we ended up digging down into it to find out that TPA's Coolata is WS3 at 10% in PG. Oh, cool. Where's my notepad? Let me write this stuff down. Because if I don't write it down, I'm not going to remember this. But that's pretty cool information to find out. How did they find out about it? I don't know. Is it a verifiable or authenticatable source? Well, I don't know, but let's find out. Is TPA Coolata WS3 at 23% in propylene glycol? Let's go to our lovely AI bot Grok and ask it. Is TPA Coolata WS23 PG at 10%? See what it says. Who's a bad boy out there? Yes. Look at that. Just like that, we found out. Yes, TPA Coolata, specifically labeled as Coolata 10BG, is WS3 diluted at 10% in propylene glycol. This is also something that, as you do more and more mixing and you get more and more scientific about it, you end up finding out that, when the manufacturers create these delicious recipes and submit them for things like the PMTA, they have to submit the CAS number. The CAS number is a very uniquely identifiable number for every specific combination of chemicals out on the planet. So if you want to order this particular WS3, you can simply order it by the CAS number. You can search for it by the CAS number, and it will be sold as WS3. And there's the actual chemical compound that makes up that ingredient. But it's cool. This is really nice to know that WS3 is the same thing as Coolata. WS3 is a 10% solution in propylene glycol, and it's sold as TPA's Coolata. So Coolata crystals diluted to 10% concentration in propylene glycol with no other additive ingredients is the exact same thing. It's not WS23, a different, often stronger cooling compound. Oh, cool, more knowledge, more information. This is awesome. So WS3 is cooling, WS23 is more, it's a stronger cooling agent. It's a different, often stronger compound that many vendors sell at 30% in PG. So wait a minute. So they're selling Coolata at 10%, WS3 at 10%, WS23 is stronger, and it's being sold at 3 times the concentration. Cool. This is information you can't get anywhere else. Nobody tells you this kind of stuff. And when you're single flavor testing it, you're certainly not going to know this. You have to do some research. This is what is going to make you into a flavorist, not just a DIY mixer. Anybody can take a bunch of ingredients that sound good and mix them all together at an appropriate, what we think is appropriate ratio to come up with a beautiful tasting recipe. And some people don't care about the science. But if some point in time you want to get, into manufacturing these things, the science will come back and bite you in the butt. because you're going to need to have them on plenty of forms that you're going to fill out in order to sell them. You're also going to need to fill them out on customs forms when you ship stuff elsewhere. Because, if you're shipping things on an industrial scale from, your company to somebody else's company, well, you need to create a safety data sheet, and the safety data sheet is going to have a breakdown of what CAS ingredients are in your mixture. And you don't need to actually give the actual percentages out, but some of these documents that have been submitted to the FDA, if it ever got out into the public, you could actually break down a clone of somebody else's recipe based on the CAS ingredients list. You just need to figure out what the actual percentages are. Simple. Cool. What else we got information out there? For those of you that have been mixing for a while, this is all like, okay, well, you're going deep dive into some of this stuff. I really wasn't looking for that. And I was kind of looking for just a general summary. Okay, well, then this link will definitely help you out. This is going back to when they used to do a flavor of the week. And that's something that, this channel is heading towards once we get past this, fundamental characteristics of DIY mixing. Because I want this, Flavorist Diary to be something that, my kids or my grandkids could someday go watch in succession and find out what I learned about DIY mixing. Hopefully they won't need to DIY mix their own. Hopefully, eventually we'll get past all the stigma and the naysayers out there. That you'll be able to just go walk into any corner shop and pick up this stuff so that you don't smoke. But, we don't know what the future holds, so we're going to learn for ourselves and try and do the best we can. Here's a list of this week's flavor was menthol and coolants. And if you want to learn about it and you want to discuss it, well, here you go, man. WS-23 is cold as shit. Doesn't impart any additional flavoring. Best used between 0.5% and 1%. Can be taken to 1.5%. If you're Dimitri, you might want to put that at 5%. Because everybody knows Dimitri is like an ice freak, and because that's all he's ever used is ice, and he can't never get enough of it, he's always cranking up the percentage and having custom batches made for his preference of coolingness. Because that's something else that is very common to happen is eventually you get numb to the things, and in order to get the same effect, like, with any other drugs, you have to increase the percentages, right? So like if you're using Coolata in everything that you ever mix up, a year from now, you won't be able to taste the Coolata at its normal strength. It'll taste weak to you. And if you insist on having that freeze your brain sensation every single time that you take a chuff of your vape, well, eventually you're going to have to keep pushing the cooling things. And the other alternative to that is you're going to have to swap the ingredients out that you're using. Kind of like, Vapor's tongue is when your tongue is overloaded with the flavorings from a liquid. The same thing when you're cooling sensations. So you got WS-23, Coolata, the original King Cold, that was recently overshadowed by WS-23. For some like myself, it works well under 0.75%, but it brings along some soapiness and chemical edge, which I came to find out whenever I was mixing up my strawberry e-liquid from 2 weeks ago, and I put it into a tank that had other stuff in it. I got a real soapy sensation when I vaped the next time, and I'm like, oh, those two combinations of flavors do not work together. And unfortunately, off the top of my head, I don't remember what it was. But yeah, that's a common occurrence that can happen with different flavorings. The only one I care for is Flavor West Menthol. I never take above 1% since it will alter the flavor of whatever you put it in. Yeah, it's a great flavor modifier. Besides the fact that it's adding a cooling sensation, it can also add that true menthol flavor that some of us got accustomed to when we were smoking cigarettes. And some of us are still like passionately infatuated with menthol. Like the shampoo and the body wash I have, one of the ingredients inside of there is menthol because it gives you that fresh feeling. As soon as you smell it, it's like, ooh, yeah, menthol. But yeah, it's also inside of your liquids that you mix up and can be used by you as a DIY mixer. Eucalyptus is one that nobody ever talks about, To my knowledge, Inaware is the only company that makes eucalyptus flavoring, and it's damn fine as an expectorant. During the winter and the early spring, I religiously vape Midnight Oil, and they actually links to the recipe for his eucalyptus oil-based vape liquid. And always helps keeps my airways open. It's been said that this stuff may not be 100% safe to be vaped because it's an oil-based flavor. Since it doesn't completely dissolve, it needs to be homogenized to even be in solution. It's slightly sweet and almost medicinal on its own, but, that's what it's for. And then we also have things like creme de menthe. Creme de menthe isn't just a chocolatey, minty flavor. It's also a flavor modifier if you want a cooling sensation in a recipe that already has those same kind of chocolatey characteristic notes in it. And for this person, they all taste the same. Slight vanilla cream, something akin to spearmint or peppermint, and an ever so slight cooling factor. Great as a standalone, but easy to boost with things like WS23. Flavor Art Spearmint and Flavor Art Peppermint. Also easily the best type of flavoring to mix chocolate concentrates with to make a beautiful thin mint. And I won't go deep diving into the whole conversation, but I wanted to at least cover that for you to let you know there's so much valuable information out there. You just need to go digging for it. Couple Google searches. You can jump through a couple of these threads that they've been out there for years. This was 8 years ago this was posted. The information hasn't changed because TPA still makes the same ingredient using the same recipe. And the user's actually left the platform, deleted his account. But fortunately, his contribution to the community is still available for your indulgence. Just like that. Cool. Links to all this stuff is in the description below. And this is not to take away from anything that has already been presented by Noted, Wayne's channel, DIY or Die, and all the years that Noted ran. Here's the specific episode that led them to discover everything there is to know about menthol. Dropped a link in the chat so you guys can click on it if you so choose to learn more about menthol and cooling agents and everybody's individual experience with these things. Different people contributed to it, threw their 2 cents in. So feel free to check them out. Or single flavor test your own and move on to the next stuff. Awesome sauce. That's all the links that I have for this week. I did place a Bull City Flavors order because I did get a notification that Inaware 2 apples is finally back in stock. So, unfortunately, $25 minimum order. And Hunky V will get you 5% of Bull City Flavors. Placed an order and got some stuff that'll be here for the vlog next week. That and Neil Pitts, your recipe you submitted. I was missing 2 ingredients. I ordered them too. Was it boysenberry raspberry flavor from Wonder Flavor and red vanilla soda flavor from Flavora? Which is some of them. Wayne mentioned something about lemon lime flavor that he uses in a lot of the commercial recipes he develops. He's found out that they all want like a little je ne sais quoi, a little extra oomph to the recipes that he develops sometimes. And he finds that if he puts even, just 0.5% or 1% of that inside of the recipe, regardless of what the flavor profile is, it just amps the punchiness of that flavor profile. So I'm like, oh, really? Let me try that for myself. I don't have that one, so I had to pick that up. Just pick up a little 10 mil of it, just enough to play with and experiment. Have been cleaning my desk off. I am sending 2 packages out to 2 of the ladies out there that watch the show, Archimedes and Cheryl Demers. I took over 7 pounds of liquids that I've made up on random recipes for the past, 3-4 months or whatever. And they're sitting in a box right now. So I'm going to send the ladies over that care package. And I did ask Cheryl, I did ask you before the show started, If you want a 60 or 120 ml bottle of cinnamon Danish swirl muffins, if you do, we can mix that up, and I can include that in your package and send it over your way. Just let me know if you want it and what size you want. And the other thing I really want to send you is this Slurricane that we mixed up last week. Holy cow. We'll come back to the random recipe. My recipes, Slurricane. If y'all got the ingredients to mix this, oh man, what an awesome shake and vape. Cheryl, you want 120 ml of this too? 3 or 6? This is an awesome shake and vape. Has cotton candy, which is 10% ethyl maltol at 1%, papaya 3.5%, peach from SSA at 1.25, Saturn peach at 2%, sour from TPA at 1%, Capella Super Sweet at 0.75, and sweet guava at 3.5. And that's exactly what I've got in the retro vape that we did this past week. I love it. Oh man, do I love it. The only thing that sucks is this Drag X. I gotta fill it up like 3 times a day because the little tank in here is just too small. And this little rubber bungy thing is still a problem because you got this twist top that like covers the rubber port, and I can't get my fingernail in there. It's because it's too short to grab a hold of this rubber thing to refill it. Such a pain in the wazoo. But yeah, man, it's just delicious. Just like that. You see, we mixed that up for the show, and that's all that's left. And the show is on Tuesday. That was mixed up right before the show. Get back here, Maud. Holy cow. Did not realize how many tanks I had on my desk. It's ridiculous, dude. I got 20 drippers and tanks that have been now cleaned and still sitting on here, but now they're cleaned and get ready to go into storage or find a shelf to put them on. It doesn't include the half a dozen mods and tanks that I put on the shelf behind me too.
4908, Alex Pineapple Peach Mango would be a nice mix. That is all.
Yeah, that does sound like a good combination of ingredients. Pineapple, peach, and mango. That's just like in this recipe. I'm really impressed with this Saturn peach. I cannot describe what she tastes like. It is reminiscent of peach, and Kenny even looked it up. And I guess it's like a flat peach. You know, it's like this tall and like that big around. So it's like a completely different thing, and it really fits well with the papaya and the peach combination inside of here. Papaya, peach, and guava. So like when you vape this, you don't recognize those ingredients in there. It's peach-esque, but the papaya and the guava give it like a sour characteristic, with the sour being amplified in there. So it's like your initial taste when you first vape it is the sweetness. Then you get a really juicy fruit that you can't identify, and then you get like a very slight sour note on your mouth, but it doesn't dry your mouth out. Unlike the peanut butter recipe we mixed up the week before. That stuff there, man, even after you mixed it up as a recipe, it was just like, I'm reaching for like a jug of water to try and like resalivate my mouth. Unlike this one. This one's fantastic. So yeah, I'll mix up 120 mils of that for you, and we'll go back to my recipes. I'll show you the cinnamon Danish swirl muffins. So we'll mix up 120 mils of that lovely recipe for you. Delicious. Cinnamon Danish swirl from Capella. They have 2 versions of that. I made them with both. They both work. I guess maybe the original cinnamon Danish swirl is better than the diacetyl-free version. Custard cake from Capella, frosting from Capella, which I did happen to when I was cleaning out my studio. Find a 30 ml bottle of it. So I thought I was out of it because the 10 ml bottle is just about empty. I maybe have enough left for another batch. Well, now that I got a 30 ml bottle of the frosting, I definitely have enough to make both you and Archimedes 120 ml bottle of this. Send over your way. Sticky bun from Capella at 3%, 1% super sweet, vanilla bean ice cream from Capella at 0.5%, and vanilla cupcake from Capella at 2%. Delicious. And you want to know what it tastes like? That picture right there, that's 100% accurate of what this DIY liquid tastes like. A beautiful cinnamon Danish swirl muffin with the nice frosting on top. And it's not like sickeningly sweet either. It's just like, you know, like cream cheese icing, cream cheese frosting you put on stuff. Awesome, awesome recipe. Yeah, so this was mixed on an Advocate for Liberty show, the Love of Mixing show, season 2, episode 7, breakfast recipes. The original recipe is private. At least it was. Yeah. This recipe is marked as private, and I do not feel bad about showing it off because it was mixed on Advocate for Liberty show. So you can go watch Advocate for Liberty show, season 2, episode 7, breakfast recipes, and you can see the same recipe there. So normally when people take things private, you know, I don't talk about it on the live stream. Still do on conversations I have with people via email or chat or whatever. But because I imagine they take these recipes, some of the ones that have gone private that I think are taste fantastic. The only reason it went private is because some company bought out the recipe and is now selling it as a commercial liquid. So check out, if you got the ingredients to make this, definitely well worth it. Archimedes, you want 120 mils too? Cinnamon Danish swirl muffins. And the other one, the Slurricane that we just mixed up. Throw that in your box. But yeah, 7 pounds of DIY liquids have come off my desk in this past 2 days. Setting a box in the other room. All I have left to do besides make you each 2 of these, one Slurricane and one Cinnamon Danish swirl muffins, is to bottle up the extra flavorings that I have laying around here. There was a grape juice that's in the box, and there was something else that got put in the box. And like I said, I did find that frosting, so I'm no longer in dire need of frosting. You want to cover the shipping? I'll send you the total after I get it all boxed up. Yeah, so it's all good to go. I do have a bunch of flavors that I ordered from VSO. They were having them on clearance. They were like the pumpkin and like, I don't remember what all they were. There's half a dozen of them. Plus I have half a dozen of flavors ingredients. Flavors was the first person that reached out to this channel and was like, dude, let me sponsor you. We do flavors here. Let me send you some flavors because I see you do random recipe mixing. And so they hooked me up. And they're based in Australia. And they can technically no longer sell to DIY mixers like ourselves because we use it for vaping. But you could technically go on their website and swear to God that you're not going to mix it DIY vape stuff. You're ordering their aromatic flavors for your candle making business or whatever, and you can still order from Flavors, but they can't technically send it to vape companies or people that are vape associated. But yeah, they sent a whole bunch of flavors my way, and I love mixing with them because every single one of them is about the same relative strength. So if I put 5% and 5% in, I'm going to get something that's going to taste like both of them, and it works great. But I do have a bunch of their stuff. The original box that he sent me. Let me show you guys. You're not going to believe this. Original box he sent me had a bunch of these 250 ml bottles, and this is just flavoring. Now, granted, this one is a one shot, so you can literally, if you just wanted a custard, you could simply take this, put it into a recipe that you create for yourself at like 15% or 20%, let this thing steep for a couple weeks, and you can have a beautiful, delicious custard all by itself. Or you want marshmallow custard? We have plenty of that left, so I'll send you each 30 ml bottles of these. Here's honeycomb. It's a delicious honeycomb flavor, very cute, pure and clean flavor. And I'm never going to go through it all. So, you know, I'll throw you guys each 30 mils of each of these flavorings. I got a couple more up there, dragon fruit, and cookies and cream is a one shot. I sent Kenny a bunch of that. I probably sent Kenny, well, the first year I sent him a 30 ml bottle and he really liked it. So the last year I sent him a 60 ml bottle of it so he can mix up with that one. And Noosa Blue Raspberry. It's the Australian version of Blue Raspberry cotton candy. And that's delicious too. So these extra VSO flavors that I will never be able to go through and plow through, and these flavors ones that I've got an inordinate supply of it, I'll send over your way. Because it's just taking a broom on my shelf. And like I said, I'm never going to go through it all. I would really love to take this and throw it into, like, you know, a 60 ml bottle. That's all I have left for myself. Put it on the shelf with the other 60 ml bottles that I have from Flavors. If I move out of the way, all those blacktop ones, those are all Flavors that they sent. So, rhubarb custard.
Attention everyone.
Yeah.
According to Freerider
Advocate
Vapor
for Liberty mixed up
4908,
a peanut
Alex,
butter
could you
rhubarb.
mix a rhubarb and custard? That is all.
Yeah. Advocate for Liberty mixed up a peanut butter rhubarb custard at one time. I think I mixed it up. Let me look at the recipes there. Rhubarb. There you go. I mixed that up the one day. It was a really tidy, tasty one. Rhubarb cookies, peanut butter rhubarb cookies. If you've never had rhubarb before, it is a very earthy, almost celery-esque flavor. But it's delicious in the right combination. And like this one worked really well. I'd probably rate this one like an 8 out of 10. Maybe 7.5 out of 10. Flavor-wise. But for somebody that, you know, hasn't had rhubarb since you've been a little kid, I mean, let me tell you, that actually turned out to be pretty good. Brought back memories from my childhood. Rhubarb compote. My mom did that before because we had big gardens growing up as a kid. Had an acre and a half of land, and behind the house was all tilled up soil and potatoes and plum trees, pear trees, apple trees. And every year, you know, I had all kinds of stuff planted, paprika and cucumbers and pumpkins, whatever, you know, Mom got a hold of seed-wise from the grocery store, you know, got planted. She was out there every day for like 2 months, you know, bent over, putting the seeds in the ground. Didn't even like do like a lot of people do nowadays where they'll put the seeds and set it up inside their dining room, you know, with the sun beating in and then carefully water for the first 2 weeks. Nah, man, she went straight to seed in the ground and called it a day. Happy hippie, hello and welcome. Glacier Show, hello and welcome. I got addicted to Bombo Choco Nut Tart. Don't know how to try and replicate it. It's so crazy good juice. I purchased 3 bottles of long fill of them, but would like to make that tasty stuff myself. Yeah, there's so many of us that, you know, buy commercial liquids, and it's like, even like I talk about this Marketplace one. Like, how did they get such a punchy passion fruit, peach, dragon fruit? And I mean, it's crystal clear. So it's like, I've tried a bunch of the different peaches I have. None of them are punchy enough. Are they using citric acid in there to amp up the punchiness of that peach? Or are they using a little bit of that lemon lime from Capella to amp up the flavor profile of that? I don't know. William Thompson, hello and welcome. Yeah, so we got all kinds of cool stuff here to do. But I did promise, unfortunately, I broke my promise because I forgot to do it on the vlog this Tuesday. I did promise I was going to show you guys how to wick the Vandy Vape Kylin V3. So I wanted to include that in today's show. We'll move on to that. And then as soon as I get that thing wicked up, we'll throw together a random recipe for today and finish off the show for us. But I got to move my bottles out of the way. Even though I took 7 pounds of liquids off my shelf, I did take like 20 bottles of flavors and move that for our explanation of flavor modifiers. So let's move all these out of the way. I'll sort them out after the show, get them on the shelf where they belong. Nice being able to scoot all that off at once. And look, man, I got more stuff I've been cleaning. Drippers and tanks, and finally got my Odin to the point where it's like, okay, time to put that back on the shelf for a while. That stock coil got really dirty with the liquid we had in there, but sure was tasty while it lasted. So, okay. Yeah, so we got Kylin V3. Now, when somebody asked on the show for me to wick this, I had to go digging for it. And once I did find it, naturally, first thing I did was, okay, why are they asking for a wicking tutorial on this? What makes it so hard to wick? And I'm like, that's right. This Kylin was so wonderful that you could make it with a single coil or a dual coil. And me, taking the easy way out, looking at the size of these openings over here for your juice flow and the opening that is over there, quickly realized that it's going to be way easier for me to wick this as a single coil. So what did I do? Reached in my box, grabbed my standard 3mm coils that I use in everything. These are NNKs. You can Google it and find them on Amazon. They're like $20 for a box of 100, maybe 23 now with taxes, or 25 with taxes. But for a box of 100 for 23, NI90 wrapped on an NI80 3-core. Fantastic. So what you do is you get yourself a tool like this, and this comes in multiple sizes. You know, step rings like this. And okay, so this is a 3mm right here. That means this is a 3.5mm. So you can unwind your coils. Wind them onto there to step up the size. Wind it back up. And then you can take it to another level if you really wanted to. And step that up into a 4mm coil. Step rings are not the best way to do it. They do actually make a tapered ring that you can use to expand this out. But as long as you keep them, you know, relatively the same spacing and you manipulate them about the same, you can spread this out. Naturally, when you're on camera, this doesn't go as good as it does when you're doing this by yourself. I've literally gotten it before where I just was like, okay, we'll just keep that out and then tauten it back up again. Scrunch them back together. What's the deal here? Oh, that's right. The bottom ones aren't on there. All right. Make a liar out of me. We just converted that from a 3mm to a 4mm inner diameter coil. We can tauten this thing back up and throw it in here as a space coil. Or if you had 4mm coils, you can go ahead and do that. But that's why it's so much easier for me to wick it. And the reason why they're having trouble with it is because they're wicking this using dual 3mm coils. So, to give you a tutorial on how to properly wick it, besides, you know, bunging up a set of coils to make them 4mm and spaced where you're never going to get any hot spots, and then slamming that sucker in there to give a nice, beautiful experience, we're going to bang it up with 2 3mm coils and wick it up, which is going to involve thinning the ends of the cotton out to get her to fit. Loosen that screw, loosen the screw holding the existing coil in. And you could also just bang a 3mm coil inside there. Nothing wrong with that. But I found that if you go with a 4mm coil, it gives you even better flavor. All right, so we got this sucker out right here. Let's pull out a little coily measuring tool. Take a look at the lead length that we have. What was this at? 5mm maybe. Slap it in there. And nope. Go to 6mm. Check it out. Yeah, a little bit longer than that. 6.5. 7mm. 7mm. So we'll cut these down. And the reason why these are 7 instead of 6 is because if you see there's a dome top in there that sits proud of your deck, you need to make an extra 1.5 mm room for that. And you could cut them shorter, but that's what this one's cut at, so we'll see what she looks like when we put it in there. Drop that in there. Line it up with the 2 holes. make sure that we open this up a little bit for that lead leg to drop down in there. See how that she just dropped right down in? And we'll take a look and see how that fares with the airflow opening. That does look a little bit long, but once we pull it down and towards the center, that should work out okay. Yeah, that'll work. All right, so put our finger on it. While we tighten up the screws. Get our coiling rod in here. Make sure she's straight and centered. We'll do the same for the other one. 7 millimeters. Drop that in. One. Another one, I didn't open it up enough. Standing proud on the positive side. Still tall. So let's fix that. Open up that Allen key. Doesn't want to go down, so we need to snip off a little bit of that lead leg. So we'll just take a millimeter off of that. Put her back down in there. And now I can feel that it's the same height as the other side. Tighten the top one down. Keep our finger on it. Make sure both coils are the same height, because I could push it down just a little bit more since I cut off like a ½ millimeter too long. Adjust that. They're touching each other, so we need to move that a little bit. Want these equidistant as best we can make it all the way around. This side can come up just a hair. OCD content. I want the other side. Close enough. This could go down just a hair, but that's all right. All right, so we got that brand new coiled in there. What's she ohming out at? 0.10. We'll pulse it at 45 watts. Make sure we don't have any hot spots. Don't bend it. Violence will get you nowhere, except janky, crooked coils. Very nice. As this one's cooling, I'm going to reinsert this rod into there. Pull her just off to the side. One more pulse. Treat them both equally. LBVS, hello and welcome. Laid Back Vape Show. Nice. Maddie Downs, hello and welcome. This is the Kylin V3 that we're throwing a set of wicks in today. Somebody asked for a tutorial on how to wick it without getting dry hits. Simple solution. Single 4mm coil to drop in there. Space like this. Or if you insist on dual coils, can be done. Just need to thin it out a little bit down there. I need to make sure the wicks aren't so long that they come down and start to loop back up again. Slide that through. Beautiful tension for a 3mm coil. You hear it squeak as it's going through. See how it moves the coil slightly, but it doesn't disform it? This one's looser than this one. So they're going to wick differently. Pull this one out. I'm going to take off just a smidgen of tufts. Because you want your coils to have the same amount and same tension when it comes to the wicking. That's why I love shoelace cotton. So it still moves it, but barely. Just a little bit. This one's still a little looser in there, but she'll work just fine. Okay, cut it with the edge of the deck. Not touching it, just like a millimeter away from it. The next goal is to get all these strands parallel. You're just going to take out whatever tufts happen to be there. You're essentially just combing the wicks. And if there's no tufts in there, the amount that you actually pull out is going to be very, very minimal. But you can actually see how these are now combed, and you can see the color variation of it. My camera does a really bad job showing you that because of how much brightness is in this room. What you're going to take is push this down into there just to make sure it's just long enough to reach into it. And I'm going to comb this again just to extend some of these wicks out a little bit, just teasing it. And now that I've got it extended just a little bit, this will stay down. And if we need to, we can always throw a little bit of e-liquid onto it. Hold on. Some of these are just a little too long. You don't want them to curl up or clog up that opening down there. Just a little too long. I want to make sure that this is open with your tweezers. This is not like plugged up. You need plenty of movement down in this opening. Otherwise, you will not get enough juice to your coils to keep up with it. And if you see when you pull up on it, you can just barely see the bottom. That's all you want in there. Just enough to go past this opening. Barely touching it. If it's a little too long, it's very easy for you just to squeak this back just a hair and making sure that this opening is completely covered. It's good to go. Next, on the other side, we'll repeat the same process. My finger is actually touching the back of the wick here, and I can feel the pointy tweezer just barely making contact with my skin. This one thinned out a little bit more than the other side did. Check the length. This is still a little bit too long. When you bend it down like this, it should just barely touch the deck. See how they're still sticking up past my tweezers? That's how much you got to cut off. Now we got her cut off and it's nice and combed out. You can always open up your tweezers a little bit. Grab it as a clamp and then slowly feed it down into there. Make sure that there's enough room as they move around. Make sure if you pull up on it, you can see the ends are just past the opening. That's how you make sure you don't have too much cotton inside this opening and it won't flood the deck and it will be able to keep up with whatever liquid you put on it. Because I love this Slurricane so much, we're going to load that up. Couple quick taps as you're applying liquid to the coil. Heats it up just enough to thin it down. As the liquid is warm, it will easily get to the point where your wicks are perfectly saturated. You can even see in the opening there that the liquid has gotten into there. This side was so much that it's actually starting to come out. So get their paper towel or a cloth to clean it. Put the tank together. This one has a quarter turn release, but the top is a screw on top. Yes, wicking is like a zen. You just sit there and tease it and play with it. Then we just fill right up. The reason why these things have such a top recessed hole over here is so that you don't flood your deck. Only fill your tank up to the bottom of this opening here. You want to leave this top air to compress. The same thing that is an annoyance for us when we get a bottle and there's only just a little bit of liquid left in it, and we go to squeeze it, you got to really squeeze this bottle. That's because the air compresses very easily. The liquid does not compress. And with a screw on top like this, if you fill it clear to the top and you screw this top on, you will flood your deck. But if you leave a little bit of air on the top, that air will compress and it will not flood your deck and it will not push your cotton wicks out of place. We'll throw this on the Odin. Dovepo Odin, dual 21700 battery. And its nemesis is this latch on the bottom. Okay. You drop it, the latch doesn't stay. But if you're conscious and aware of that, you'll be fine. 0.13 is what she's measuring at. We're going to break this in gently. We'll go down to 65 watts. And wide open airflow. Which you can lock in with that top cap like that. There you go, man. Delicious, juicy, flavorful heaven. Gorgeous. Just like that, man. That's how you work the Kylin V3. Awesome flavor banger. They finally got it right. Airflow. I think it's sweeter in the Kylin V3. Not because the liquid's any different or because the coils are degrading it less, simply because of how much more volume of vapor you're getting when you have this big cloud chucking tank compared to the stock coil sub-ohm. Delicious juiciness. Still delicious and juicy inside of that one. And this is a fresh set of coils inside here. And you always have to like break in a tank of liquid through it before you get the full flavor potential of a brand new set of coils. Being that I've been vaping on this one as my all-day vape since the vlog on Tuesday. Perfect. This is also a lot cooler vape than this one is. Although you can drop the wattage a couple to get it to be identical if you really wanted to. Awesome. Well, that takes us to the 2-hour mark. I could do a random recipe, but I want to keep the show at 2 hours each week so I don't gobble up your time. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe that the Birdman is coming up. He typically does a show on Friday. So let me look on his channel. And Banter with Birdie. He's going live. So I'm going to drop this link in chat. I want you guys to go and check out his show. Go click on the link. Even if you don't stick around, just go check out his show. And say Hunky Vape sent you. So peace, love, and a Hunky Vape to all of you guys. My wish. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Hasta la vista. Go say Birdman. Go see Birdman. Tell him Hunky Vape sent you.
We'll be back next week again for a fresh round.
When you fall in love, but it don't work out. When you've cried at least 100 times. When you feel so stuck and you can't get out. Just remember, ooh, there will come a day when it all works out. And you didn't even have to try. You will find a way if you hold on now. And remember that the only way is up from here. 거울 속